Hi, everyone, and welcome to the Soul Spark Reactions podcast, where we talk about religion, philosophy, spirituality, and more. This video is called Wes Huff Shares the Gospel with Joe Rogan, and it's a clip from Wes Huff's interview from the Joe Rogan podcast. I haven't seen it all. Curious to see what he has to say.
Crazy thing about Christianity, where you have this Jewish itinerant guy who's walking around first century Roman occupied Judea. He's making some pretty audacious claims to be God himself, and then he predicts his own death and resurrection. And then his disciples they think it's over. Like, they're like, he's dead, we're done.
Yeah.
And then they go from as scared men in an upper room to completely overhauling the Roman world in only a couple hundred years because of this claim that they say they saw Jesus resurrected. Like, there's something different that goes on there, that they're like, this is a miracle, right? Dead people.
Like, that is the way he put that. Is, if you think about how people behave, yeah, if the Messiah is dead, then now we have nothing to do, because who's going to lead these people, right? And his claim that these people believed in the resurrection so much that they kept their faith and overhauled, the Roman Empire within a couple hundred years. If nothing else, that's commitment.
Don't usually rise from the dead.
What is your personal belief when it comes to the resurrection? Do you have a belief, or do you just try to interpret the text and try to see what is the message?
Well, I think so. As a historian, I do think it is a historical question. You have a guy who objectively lived, he objectively died, and then individuals close to his inner circle claim that they see him not dead.
Right.
Again.
But it's hard when you're dealing with illiterate populations, you're dealing with thousands of years of time, you're dealing with an oral tradition. It's very difficult for anybody who thinks of themselves as an intelligent person who's secular to even entertain the possibility that someone died and come back to life.
And I get that, but we've already talked about the fact that we don't think that the only thing that exists is matter and motion. We, as in you and I, right? Like, we believe that there's something else going on in this world that's a little bit crazy.
There's something else.
And that, to, I think, exclude that, I think excludes something that you're kind of putting blinders on. Yeah. Paul says that 400 people saw him all at once.
400 people saw the crucifixion?
No, saw the resurrected Jesus. Yeah, 1 Corinthians 15, Paul says that Jesus appeared to the disciples, and then he appeared to 400 people all at once. I mean, if we read the Gospel of Luke and the Gospel of, or the Gospel of Luke and Acts, so same author wrote these both documents, he says that Jesus was walking around teaching them for 40 days after he was resurrected from the dead. And so these are written within a time period when you have people who would have seen Jesus's ministry, who were there, say, at something like the feeding of the 5,000, who could have been able to verify or debunk some of these things that are being said. And you go from a bunch of scared guys who, because Jesus wasn't the only messianic figure who arose and claimed to be the Messiah.
Right.
People don't know that. That's true.
Individuals both prior to and after Jesus, but they die and the movement dies with them.
Do you think it's possible that he didn't die?
We know a lot about Roman crucifixion, and we know that, and we know that they did their job well.
Yeah.
And so, in fact, if you look at, say, very skeptical biblical scholars, like non-believing, atheist, agnostic, Christian scholars, they will say if we can know anything about Jesus, like, they'll cast a doubt on a lot of the things that we read about in the Gospels in terms of the actual historical Jesus of Nazareth. They'll say one thing we can be sure of is that he died by crucifixion under Pontius Pilate. It was actually a really good article done by JAMA, the Journal of the American Medical Association, which was done by a number of, I think it was in the 70s or the early 80s. It was done by a group of biblical scholars and then medical professionals. And so they looked at the conventions of what we do know about Roman crucifixion, and then they looked at the descriptions in the gospel to try to figure out, okay, if we could diagnose how Jesus died, how would he have died? And so they basically came up with this idea that he probably asphyxiated to death. You kind of drown in your own blood. But the chances of Jesus surviving the crucifixion, I think, are narrow to none.
So this guy, the level of his level of intellect is a lot higher than I am accustomed to when you're talking about this subject, because he is Christian, but he is actively going back and sort of looking at historic information from multiple cultures and trying to come up with this. It's almost like he's trying to see if he can prove or debunk the resurrection, which is, that's Christianity is based off of that.
He is Christian, but he's also valid for him to be Christian.
You got to do it. That's great.
One thing I will say is that almost all the apostles got killed in horrible deaths in the future, and all they had to say is that Jesus was not that, and they weren't willing to. Now, you've had people during the Inquisition times getting tortured for being heretics that were actually followers of Christianity, and they would say that they were witches so they can die so they wouldn't be tortured anymore. But these people were willing to go through torture and would not change. You will lie for anything to get the torturing to end.
That's belief. Yeah. That's the power of belief. Yeah.
Not just belief, they're too scared even to freaking go against it.
So it was even okay, fear to
imagine, if you will, try to put yourself in the apostles. Let's say Jesus 100%. Let's say he resurrected. You saw him. You were there. Yeah. You were one of his followers. You saw him.
Yeah.
And so you know, without a shadow of a doubt in your mind, that is the man right there.
Yeah.
You're getting tortured now. Are you gonna forsake what you know to be true at that point?
I wouldn't. I wouldn't. This guy makes a really compelling argument, though. That was a really the best argument I've ever heard for the resurrection so far. Okay, thank you all for watching. Feel free to like, subscribe, and comment any videos you would like us to react on next. Thanks. Till next time.